Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. I'm going to continue talking about kind of tournaments, and as a competitor, again, to try and keep them forefront of my mind, remind me how much I love them. So in that vein, I want to talk about what do I want out of a tournament, right? And I think this is quite an important question to ask yourself, because especially these days, there's far more tournaments than there used to be. So you can actually choose. You have to choose. In fact, in many cases, which one you want to go to. As an organizer, it's also a useful thing to ask what you think your tournament is giving, which may or may not map to what you want, but map to what you think people might want. This is not an answer that will be the same for everybody. But I do think a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are pretty common, right? So what do I want out of a tournament? For me, win or lose, a tournament will be really good if I've had the opportunity to fence people who push me, people who have never fenced before, and get a good number of matches that I feel the outcome is just fair, right? Which isn't necessarily the same as saying I won. But of course, in a fair world, I would win everything. It's pretty simple, right? I want to fight lots of good people that never fenced before, make them push me as much as they can, and not feel like the result was just a roll of the dice. Okay. Doing that, of course, is not necessarily quite as straightforward, right? And I think there's a lot of things that can contribute to not necessarily having that. There are a lot of other things that people might want that don't match to that. So I would put one of those examples there being the idea that I want all my matches to push me, and I know a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people, for instance, like to have some matches where they can feel a bit easier, they can kind of relax into them. In the pools, and prefer, for instance, completely open tournaments rather than a tiered split, which is what I would prefer. I think almost nobody has the view that they want unfair judging or unfair matches in terms of the result. But I think for some people, winning is more important than fairness, or rather, maybe not more important, but they value the winning component as well as, at least. And a good example for this is I went to Bratislava Effect, which was one of my worst tournament performances since I got good. I think I got 2 wins and 3 losses. No, I think it was 3 wins and 3 losses, actually. Sorry, because it was a pool of 6. Anyway, regardless, the point is, I lost. And in my final match, and all my losses, in fact, I didn't come out of them thinking, actually, I won that. The rules were not necessarily the ones that I would prefer to fence under, but in terms of the application of the rules, I think they were absolutely spot on, and I didn't come out of it thinking, oh, bullshit, I lost all these kinds of things. Part of that was that I was fencing really good fences because it was a tier A, right? And every single match was pushing me. And even, except for my last one, actually, which knocked me out, which I'm a bit grumpy with myself for, but that's it. The other matches I lost were all very close. And indeed, most of my wins were very close because they were all ones that were really, really stretching me to pull out my A game as much as possible, right? But I didn't come back from it thinking I didn't do as well as I thought I would. But I didn't come back from it salty about that. I was actually quite pleased because it was this kind of stretching action. I think a lot of other people would necessarily be like, yeah, but I got all these fights and I didn't win the tournament. Be grumpy about it. Not me. And then related to that, right, I don't particularly care if those matches are ones that are contributing to, it's my computer screen turning off. It's providing way more light than I thought. I don't care if the matches are contributing to me eventually winning the tournament, for instance, right? And I've seen this a lot. People say, once I've lost the pools, I don't want any kind of like consolation matches or anything like that. If I can't win, I don't really care. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as those matches are judged and they're getting to some ranking in the tournament, whether that's for 10th place or 20th place or first place, so that they matter, so that people are really kind of pushing for them. And that they're fair and stretching, great, right? More matches, fantastic for me. But as I say, that is definitely not everybody's opinion. So, what does that lead to in terms of kind of questions around what tournaments for me to look for? Well, increasingly, I'm of the opinion that I don't particularly want to compete in general tournaments that are kind of open for all levels. That doesn't mean, I want to be clear, that I don't want to fence people of any level. I absolutely do. But if people are kind of newer, I would much rather spar with them than fence them in a tournament. I think it could be a better experience for both of us. And especially, I have a lot of times where newer people fence me in a tournament and they come up to me afterwards and like, can you tell me some advice? And in a tournament mindset, I'm not in teaching mode. It's very hard for me to do that. If I'm sparring, I am able to give kind of more detailed advice and kind of make it more fun for both of us, right? But back to tournaments, yeah, increasingly I'm of the opinion that I will only really want to compete in tiered tournaments as far as possible. I'm sure there will be exceptions, but tiered tournaments give a much better kind of stretching aspect, I think, for everybody in both tiers, in whatever tiers you do. I definitely don't want tournaments that have too few matches. Really, pools of 5 and elims are kind of too few. Right, and that used to be the standard. I think pools of 10 have creeped up to being typically 6. And really, I don't love the elim format because it doesn't lead to you getting lots of good matches, right? The best example for this is Helsinki, which I did earlier this year, at the start of this year. I think in one, I had a dropout in my pool, so I had a pool of 5. In longsword, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was true. Scraped through the elims, fine. I got a couple elim fights in, and I got knocked out, right? And putting aside whether I feel that the result was fair, in terms of the outcome of the match being true, even if I'd won that and I'd kept going up until the end, despite Helsinki being a tournament that had 20, 30, top 100 fighters in it, I probably would have only gotten a match with 2, maybe 3 of them, on the best case scenario, right? Versus Bratislava effect, where I had 2 other top 100 fighters in my pool and got matches with them kind of guaranteed no matter what, right? So, I increasingly want to look for tournaments that are doing something more interesting with pool matchups, with tournament design, to get people these kind of lots of different fights. And of course, let's face it, elephant in the room, can't not mention it, judging. I really want tournaments to be better at investing in their judges. We do it in Wessex and Albion. Our judges get a hell of a lot of experience because we have 4 tournaments a year, plus now NHO, London HEMA Open, plus now Hearns Cup, which is doing 2 that use the similar systems and a similar set of judges. So they have an awful lot of experience and have been invested in over the years. Bratislava, they have dedicated judges that they fly in and pay. It's good. You can tell the difference. Absolutely, you can tell the difference. They're still not perfect, right? Nor are our judges, but they're way better than anything else. And sorry, Helsinki. Helsinki is a great example of the opposite, where, and I don't mean to criticize the individual judges. This is a system issue. The people who are judging it are people who have flown in. They've never spoken to each other before. They've never worked together before. They've probably never judged under that system before. The flag system that it uses is completely devoid of nuance. So they're not able to say, "Oh, I think this is the hit I'm calling," or anything like that. And it's a judging system that is just designed for error, as far as I'm concerned. So those are things I will be looking for tournaments in future, particularly to get what I want, as I say, which is lots of close stretching matchups with a fair result. And I had a 4th and I've already forgotten it. But I'm sure that's included in there as well. Do think about your own set. Do think about what matters to you. And if you're organizing a tournament, think about what you're aiming for, what you're optimizing for, because it will affect how you design your tournament. Thanks for watching. If you like this or my other content, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing it on different places. And if you'd like me to talk about a topic or you'd just like to say thanks, please go over to my Coffee page, ko-fi.com/historical fencing research, and buy me a coffee there and ask a question if you want me to cover something specific.